of mathematical operations, I mean, that's never going to work. I mean, it's going to be a problem. And don't directly access is a pointer, because if you want to get into the internal structure, let's say you write row codes to get the internal structure of an object, and you try to use is a pointer, but I would recommend using object get class method instead of using is a pointer, because that again leads to a problem. Another one is, if you have written any assembly language in your code, please rewrite that for the specific platforms, or else again, maybe the static analyzers may not come up with all these problems, but you might get caught somewhere else, because you never know where the problem lies. I would recommend you to read a small 25-page document which is released by Apple 64-bit transition guide, when you're writing apps for 64-bit as well as 32-bit. Okay, so that's with 64-bit transition issues. Now finally, we'll move on to hidden gems of iOS 7 development. Now these are, all the way along they are there, but we are never aware of it. But then here are some tricks which I'm going to teach you guys. Method completion, the first one. Second one is edit in scope. Third one is renaming IB objects. Fourth one is URL utilities. Now what is method completion? So in method completion, let's say usually if you might have seen that the methods are very large in Objective-C and they're very self-explanatory, but it's very difficult to remember these methods by heart. So how will you help your IntelliSense to call this such kind of methods? How would you easily write this method? So I'm going to teach you a trick where you put a hyphen. So hyphen stands for a instance method, and plus stands for a class method. And you just have to type the beginning name of the function, and that's all. You get the IntelliSense. You don't have to type the return type. Just write the name of the functions and you get it. So that's how you actually autocomplete it. Now moving to edit in scope. Edit in scope is another neat little trick which I'm going to teach you. Let's say I have some code here. What this code does, this doesn't really matter for you guys. But here in this function, on this method, if you see, there's a variable called SCG point position, and that appears in a couple of places. It even appears in for loop. But now this is quite confusing for me. But I want to rename this position. So what do? Is I just use this edit in scope feature. So first of all, so I just select CG point position. And what happens is I just go to editor, edit all in scope. So it's actually visualizing the scope. You get it highlighted everywhere. The only thing that now you need to do is just go and rename them, and that's all. You're done. So that's another neat little trick. So use this. Another one is renaming IB objects. Now this is with respect to your interface builder, okay, where you have this view hierarchy. So you might find a complex UI elements and you don't know what to refer. So it just creates a relationship. So what you can do here is, so let's say I have so many views and image view, but it's not very much easy for me to, if I have so many visual elements, to identify which element is for what. So I can just click on them, like how we, for the macOS users, how you just rename a folder. You just tap on them, give a pause, give a click again. It's just in the renaming mode or editing mode where you can just rename them. So in the same way, I can just rename. Now, point to notice, these are not going to get compiled along with the XIB files. It is just for the presentation purpose. So it's never going to get compiled. So it doesn't matter what you name here. You don't have to change not even a single piece of code. So that's really a cool thing. Now finally we are moving to URL utilities. Another cool thing which I want to show you guys, usually we have used lots of utilities when you're connecting to your web service. You have a URL here, let's say, and we all know URL consists of certain parts like scheme, host, path, and query, even username and password and fragments. So we use nsurl.h or we use categories to manipulate them. You try to break your URL path components. You try to use many string functions using appending the last component, or you may use appending file extensions, APIs. I mean all string related functions. But now you don't have to do that. You have to just use your nsurl components class. So once you initialize components.class, you have couple of properties like scheme, user, password, host, path, and fragment. Only thing that you need to do is just initialize them. Once you do that, you can actually query them for your URL, or another good thing is you can also modify them. So you can, so this NSURL components is especially used for building an URL from scratch as well as modifying certain components of them. So in this case, I have components, I have initialized with a string, okay, of a URL, and then see I have a password which is a part of the string which says SEECRET, but then I use components.password and I just rename it. So it's that simple. You don't have to use any of your string function, appending, appending with string, nothing. And finally, you want to query the URL, you just have to use components.url, you get the URL. So that's it. So with this, we come to an end of the session. So you can post your queries right now. And thank you so much for listening patiently for this webinar. And for any training related information, you can just log on to our website, www.stylelearning.com, or call us at 9036979036, or write a mail to us, atc@style.in. So this slide would be there for a couple of minutes. People who want to make a note of it, you can make a note of it. And there's one more thing which is installed for you guys. Now, that is, we have an upcoming introductory workshop on Swift soon. That is tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and the venue is Style Lab RT Nagar. And for more information, you can just call us or write to us. Now, this is exclusively free for the guys who are attending this webinar for today. And there are very limited seats, so please hurry, and we'll have a very good session tomorrow. So there are some. So I'm thankful to you guys. I mean, you guys are very interactive. You guys are posting some queries here. So there's a query that, as we know, iOS 8 beta is released. So will you give details in the recent demo? Yes, of course. There will be a webinar soon on Swift, which would be given, and as well as on iOS 8 beta. And another query says, you suggest to use @import in case of #import for project files available. Okay, now this is a very good query. Now what I want to tell you is what Apple has